Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Love the Prequels podcast, episode 5. And I just want to take the honor in introducing Ryan Kinel from RK Outpost, the #1 Star Wars fan out there. So Ryan,
the honor of having me on the channel. I'm saying it's an honor for me to get to hang out with you guys, and I get to bump up my street cred just that much more by my one black friend Cole Hauser being on his channel. So it's exciting.
Not your only black representation,
right? So, not too much, but just a little, just enough.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, and you got Magnum Norris, who Drunk 3PO claims to be black, so you got that too. Ronan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hello, everybody. Y'all know who I am. I'm Ronan the Crusader, and usually I go longer on the intro, but I'm not gonna. Let's get right into it.
Cornboy, how you doing?
That's what she said.
Awesome, man. Can't wait to have this discussion we're about to have because it's going to be a banger. Welcome in, everyone.
Awesome. Isaac, how you doing, bro?
Doing well, man. Awesome to be here as always, talking about our love for the prequels. Great to have Ryan on. Great to see everybody in chat. Going to be a great stream. So thank you again, Cole Hauser, for hosting this.
No problem. Lex, how you doing, bro?
So far, so good. Hey, yo, I love a good chat about good Star Wars. Let's have one.
Oh, yes.
And Magnum Norris, how you doing?
Great. I thought I had to work today, and fortunately, I don't have to. So here I am.
Awesome. So I'm going to open the floor to Ryan. Ryan, I guess one of the reasons why, I started this podcast is because of my love for the prequels. When I started following you a few years ago, I heard your Star Wars rants, how you love the prequels, how you've watched Attack of the Clones many times. And, I think I can equal that number as well. But Ryan, how did you, get involved with Star Wars? How did you love Star Wars?
Well, I mean, I think so I'm 37 years old. I was born in 1988, just for a little perspective for everybody out there. So for me, Phantom Menace came out in 1999. I was 11 I was like 10 going on 11 years old, right around that area. So it was probably like the perfect age for them to come out. But, before that, we had the VHS of Star Wars. I remember like the old school VHS cover of Star Wars right before the special editions that I, watch at my grandparents' house, down, in my aunt and uncle's basement at a party, and all the kids would go down there and we'd watch the Star Wars movies. And I liked them well enough. I certainly liked Star Wars, but it wasn't until Phantom Menace came out and going to see that movie in theaters that I feel like I loved Star Wars, having that experience, everybody in there getting excited, the Pepsi cans all over the place, and every single gas station had the little R2-D2 Pepsi cooler out there. It was a cool time, and that's what made me like really want to know more about Star Wars. That's what made me start wanting to get into the books. Right after Phantom Menace came out, I was sitting there, my dumb ass sitting there in school, flipping through the Scholastic like magazine, or not the magazine, but those things they used to hand out where you could send the order forms in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, and they had
their flashback.
Do you remember the hype that was around that first movie, Ryan? Because when I was 14 or 15, when that came out, it was absolutely crazy. Like the hype was just nuts, and the lines were just crazy.
People dressing up, cosplaying, all that. Loved it.
For me, I don't feel like I can really appreciate that hype because I was a little too young.
Yeah, right.
Not like the same as people who were old enough to really have already gotten into Star Wars completely and totally, and then that comes. I just wasn't old enough to really appreciate that. I wish I was. But yeah, so that's the thing. It was Phantom Menace in theaters that, put me down the path to like Star Wars being a love for me.
Yeah, because I know myself, Ryan, because I know I'm a bit older than everyone here. But I remember, because I watched the OT. My parents took me to see A New Hope. Well, it wasn't A New Hope back then, but, the first one. And then me and my brother went to go watch Empire. And then, we went to go watch Return of the Jedi. And then I remember the Phantom Menace coming out, and I saw the commercials, just everything going on. And I remember my buddy, because we were working in government back then, he called me. He's like, they have a 4 a.m. showing of Phantom Menace. And I would go, okay, never seen a movie at 4 a.m. before. So we wake up, we drive down to the theater. The place is packed. Everyone's in cosplay, Princess Leia, everything you can think about at 4 a.m. And we go watch this thing, and I was just completely blown away. I remember it as yesterday when it happened, and I literally fell in love with the prequels. And I know, there is some hate because of Jar Jar Binks and Jake Lloyd's portrayal, but I loved it, and I so.
And I think that, look, obviously there's people, and I understand the perspective for people who were older when they went to go see that and who had seen the originals in theaters and stuff like that and might feel a little differently. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think all three prequel movies are perfect movies and there's nothing worth criticizing there's nothing that anyone could possibly have a take on that, I could see where they're coming from. But for me, I do love them, and especially Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, Hayden Christensen did not get very good at acting until the very end of the last movie, in my opinion. But that's just me. But
yeah,
Revenge of the Sith remains one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, honestly, I think the third movie is probably the greatest Star Wars movie of all time, in my opinion. But
I think Empire is the best Star Wars movie ever made. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite.
Yeah, so. Empire is perfect.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, exactly.
I can say too, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie of all time. That was the first one, the hype of that coming out. I was like 6 years old when that came out. That was my birthday party theme for that year. It was, big, kind of a big deal.
6? Are you fucking like 12 years old? How old are you?
Yeah, I was born in 2000. I was born in 2002. Hey, I'm aging out of the draft next month, so we'll see. But
he's a boomer.
Look at him.
Yeah,
Look
I'm
how
a
sad
zoomer.
he looks.
Just remind me again, Revenge of the Sith was 2005, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So actually, I was 5 when it came out, but yeah.
Okay.
Still.
I was 9 around the time myself, but yeah, I got kind of into the hype because I think I originally watched. I think the first one was Attack of the Clones when I was maybe like 8-7 years old was when I first watched that one, and I didn't know so much about Star Wars. I just knew about like big flashing lights, lasers, and light swords and all that kind of stuff. And obviously a 6-year-old child would be really fascinated by that. But then as I started growing up and watching Phantom Menace after that too, same thing. It kind of started picking up, and Revenge of the Sith was the one where it was like, oh, there's an actual like story behind all of this. I'm really liking what's going on here. And it was actually, it's funny because it's around the same time when Revenge of the Sith came out. That's when I also got a chance to watch all 3 movies from the original trilogy because they re-released it again on DVD. Granted, it was the special edition ones, but
the gold edition.
I watched them all on VHS.
I remember when they first came out with the special editions because, and then they started because I still have the VHS somewhere of the pack of the 3 VHS in the
black box,
releases. Right? And then do you guys remember when they started? When they started going, we started moving to DVDs, but then you had the option for full screen versus widescreen. And so all the different versions of them.
Mm-hmm.
But your TV doesn't even work for widescreen anyways.
There it is. He has it right there.
Oh, of course he does.
So the one I grew up with is the one that's older than that with the black background, and it's red says Star Wars, blue I think is Trilogy. It's in blue. Yeah, the space background, the original art. Yeah.
There's something about watching.
Isaac, just so VHSs are like the old form of. It's the old form of Blu-ray. We used to have DVDs, and before that,
really? Wait, what's a Blu-ray? I just downloaded it off.
Do you guys remember that big ass like? So the first time I watched Terminator 2 was on this big ass like disc, and it was like
laser disc.
Big. It was like this big. Remember that?
Yeah, my brother has Empire Strikes Back on laser disc.
And didn't it have to be split to like 2 or 3 different discs because it doesn't all fit on one? You have to like flip it. And
it was on 2.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bro, and I was like 12 years old watching Terminator 2 in somebody's basement, and I was like, this is fucking awesome.
I don't think I've ever seen a laser disc in person.
I think
in my high school, and
I think the one old media I'm far more interested in, and I don't know if you guys, Kohlhauser, I don't know if you might remember this or you, Ryan, but Betamax That's the one that like always kind of just gets burned into the back of my head just because of the name of it itself.
So I think
It's from
my
the
dad had like a Betamax camera,
Okay.
like for a while. I don't think I actually remember it ever being used or anything, but he would talk about it. But I don't remember ever actually using that or watching anything from the Betamax era.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wasn't it like? I mean, I've heard this and people say a lot of shit. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but it's like, hey, there was this battle between Betamax and VHS, and the porn industry went with VHS, and so that's who ended up winning.
Look,
Yeah,
we don't know if
you can
it's true, but
delete
if,
and not re-record
I
easily.
don't know if it's true, but if it's porn choosing one, considering that porn tends to be the innovator for every fucking thing in technology, I can see it happening.
Yikes.
I guess.
That's probably.
I'll just
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say on that note too. I have my childhood Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones VHSs. The covers are falling off, dilapidated. I rewound and played those hundreds of times as a kid in my bedroom TV. And dude, just Attack of the Clones, especially my most viewed Star Wars movie. It's burned into my brain. Memories associated, especially with Episode 2. Just the fight scenes, everything. It's part of my childhood.
Now,
Widely considered the worst Star Wars movie, but
it's my second favorite Star Wars movie.
We've discussed this before. Are you sure it's the fight scenes and not just the lake house scenes?
Well, Natalie Portman affects you at in a certain way. So
Yeah, hold on. Let's be real. If this fucking senator from this rich planet takes you out to her vacation home and is flirting with you the entire time, and then wears the shit that she wore in some dark firelit room to be like, we can't be together. You'd burn the galaxy down too, okay? Anybody would.
I'm pretty sure you can go to jail for that now.
I think I understand like Hayden Christensen couldn't act in that scene because he was like,
I disagree too. I think it was taking the cadence of Darth Vader. Darth Vader talking very binary like. I think he was mimicking that. I don't hop on the hate train as much. I think
no, I don't hate. I thought it was great.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying like the worst part of all of the Star Wars films is the love scene in the second movie.
That's where we have our disagreement.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say I'm not going to pretend like I know this was the intention behind it or this was the performance that he was delivering, but this is somebody who is like had an incredibly weird life, before they hit puberty. They're a slave before they hit puberty. And then then they get taken and are brought up in the Jedi ways where you're supposed to control your emotion. Mm-hmm. He's not having interactions with women. He's awkward. So I think the way that it plays out is I think it works for what the story is. Whether that's everything was being delivered intentionally by Hayden Christensen or not, I'm not going to pretend to know. But I do think it works for like where he is as a character at that point. Which is why I fucking despise Clone Wars so much, because it's a completely different character than
I don't watch Clone Wars.
And I guess it's good to try and make the distinction. I'm assuming the Clone Wars you hate is obviously the Dave Filoni one, not the Tartakovsky one with
correct. Yes.
Right. No.
TCW is what I hate, not the Clone Wars micro series, which is fucking goated.
Oh yeah.
Where he actually acts like Anakin.
See, I think the casting of Hayden as Anakin was perfect because he was an unknown. He didn't have a track record. He was free to act as awkward as needed to be in that role because of what you said, his background and his life up until then. It was the perfect casting, in my opinion.
I mean, unknown actors tend to really sell fantastic performances because they don't have that baggage of like knowing them from a previous performance. Like take for example, and again, this might be a little bit out of Star Wars, but take for example Daphne Keane from Logan, right? When she was playing as a Laura Kinney X-23, basically, like a lot of people were really sold, and that was like the first movie that she ever starred in, if I'm correct. So having Hayden be Anakin, like for the latter two films, it was definitely a really solid choice. I would say
his acting got way better by the end of the third movie, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and that paralleled his journey as Anakin, or Anakin's journey in the story.
Yeah, and that's why and I know we've had this discussion about the dialogue. I enjoyed the dialogue in Attack. And I know Ryan, because Ryan said many times where he, like, I don't know how many times I've watched Attack of the Clones, but I've watched it a lot. And I know I've watched it a lot too, because I think Attack of the Clones is a great movie. Despite what people want to say about the dialogue, you know, I don't like sand, doesn't bother me. It just doesn't. So it may bother some, but it doesn't.
But it's coarse and it's rough and it gets everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I hate fucking sand too. You ever come back from the beach and like trying to get in your car and like maybe you'll stop at the thing to shower off your feet. You're like, let me get some of the sand off my feet. But then it's like a struggle because, okay, where do I go? I got to put it in my sandal now, but there's already sand in it. You're fucked. Sand is awful. I agree with Anakin.
What do you
on
hate more,
almost everything.
sand or sand people?
Right, both.
Both.
They're animals.
There you go.
And I slaughtered them like animals. But I Attack of the Clones, I don't know if it was just, again, I think I was just the perfect age for these movies to come out. So I was, 10 or 11 for Phantom Menace. Then I was, 12, 13 years old for Attack of the Clones. And so I obviously loved seeing so much more Jedi stuff than we'd ever seen before in history with all the different fight sequences and stuff. I enjoy the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin. That might be the first... That might be like my first on-screen crush maybe in my life. May have been Padme throughout that entire movie, especially when she's wearing her white outfit at the end.
Okay, fair.
So I watched that a million times when those DVDs came out, over and over and over again. Watched all the behind the scenes, all the deleted sequences, all of it. So I think probably just because of the age I was when it came out is why it happens to be the one I've watched more than any others. But I do love me some Attack.
Dude, when I was a kid, I wanted to call George Lucas over cutting out deleted scenes from Attack of the Clones. I was furious, especially the negotiations with Count Dooku about releasing Anakin and Padme, all those scenes. I was furious seeing that. I'm like, he cut this out.
But you were like fucking 3 years old. So you're gonna call him up. You're gonna call him up 15 years later and bitch the poor man out.
No, I wanted to call him then. I'm like, Mom, get the phone book. I'm pissed. George Lucas is, it was
Bro, Darth Maul was the coolest motherfucking badass I've ever seen in my life.
That's what I was about to say.
Like Darth Maul was like that
lightsaber
dude, he doesn't even talk. He just does his thing, man. And I was
like,
like,
agree too that he died at the end of episode 1. That's the canon.
yeah, he should have been.
That's what I was going to say, because he's a singular villain that shows up in the first film, and like, again, not to try and repeat what Ryan had said before, but like, you don't know much about him other than he's, he is a Sith that is working for, of course, Lord Sidious. He's coming in here. He's becoming not so much of a nuisance, but like a threat to the two Jedi leads that we're following. And then, of course, he kills Qui-Gon, and then Obi-Wan manages to get the better of him, and that's it. He's gone. Like, he shows up and he's a threat. That's it. He's done. But that means that the Sith have returned again to the galaxy. So we don't know what's coming next.
I think my
that
favorite
one appearance is great.
Yeah, and
my
the
favorite
level
scene.
of go ahead. No.
I think my favorite scene in Phantom Menace, I mean, aside from like the fight stuff and all that, but I think my favorite like plot moment in Phantom Menace is Qui-Gon's funeral and that conversation where it's like they're finally realizing, oh my, we've been like pretending the whole time it's not true, but we can't deny it now. The Sith are back. And then they have that question of, well, there's always two. Which is it? Was this the master or the apprentice? And I always thought that was a really cool, just like dialogue moment. And I wish you got more of stuff like that.
It's kind of interesting too. In that same scene, the last person that we see in frame happens to be Palpatine, which kind of makes it really, but obviously people watching it for the first time can't be 100% sure, or maybe they were making the connections because it's kind of the same actor, but I know when I was a kid growing up seeing that, I was like, interesting.
Well, even though everybody knew like what was happening, you could see the story playing out and everything of who it was. They refused to let anybody refer to Palpatine as Sidious in any type of media, right? In the books, right. all that stuff, nothing. Now, they were telling stories around it, and again, you could read between the lines, but they refused to make any direct connections or make that reveal until Revenge of the Sith actually came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ryan, I know kind of don't want to bring this up, but because I know it's our love for the prequels, but I like even this morning on Daily when I think Jay mentioned there was someone in a super chat mentioned about the Darth Maul series.
Yeah.
And I know listen, we know what happened with the Disney trilogy. They pretty much just kept everybody alive now. So, and I know you're not probably going to watch that series, but we just for everyone just want to hear your take on Darth Maul.
So I agree. Was it Magna Norse who just said Darth Maul was so fucking cool? Was it you that was saying that earlier?
Yes.
So Darth Maul was fucking awesome. I was Darth Maul that Halloween after Phantom Menace came out. Right?
Oh, nice. All right.
He was just cool and he was awesome, and you didn't know a ton about him, and you didn't really need to know a ton about him. Now, we did get a couple books and stuff like that about like a mission that happens directly before this, like one of his first missions he does for Palpatine. You get to know a little more about the character, but he remains fairly mysterious, and I think that's okay. And them bringing him back was a terrible, terrible mistake. And this was well before Disney took over Star Wars. This was, I mean, it would have been, the decision was probably made in 2010 or 2011 or somewhere around there.
It aired in 2011.
Yeah, 2011, I think, was season 4 of TCW. And I mean, the decision was probably made in 2010 before they made that. And Dave Filoni is part of that equation. George Lucas is part of that equation. George Lucas allowing that to happen, I think, is one of the worst decisions he's ever made in history. And I think we're seeing the ramifications of that today, by all of these characters constantly dying and then coming back to life. And then Filoni, just like he does with everything, takes it to the next level. So now we have the world between worlds, which can actually be used to bring anybody back from the dead, or bring anyone back to life, or save anyone from their fate, or see anybody. Like it sucks. Dave Filoni is a fucking hack. I've hated this piece of shit since 2008. I've despised this man, and I'm so happy that so many people are finally catching the fuck up to me when it comes to this. But the Darth Maul series, the animation looks gorgeous, in the same way that the animation for Clone Wars Season 7 looked gorgeous, but the story in Clone Wars Season 7 was absolutely retarded, and there's no way that took place during the events or Revenge of the Sith. It makes no fucking sense. Maul was never supposed to be this important of a character, or this complex, or, hanging out, doing all these things in the galaxy for this long, involved in all of this shit. He was meant to be the return of the Sith to like public, for the Jedi to see a Sith. And he was competent and he was powerful. He was full of rage and full of anger and hatred. But that's really all he was ever meant to be. He was a representation of that. He didn't lose to Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan was more skilled than him. He would have beat the shit out of Obi-Wan if it had been kind of if that happens 99 out of 100 times. But because he let his ego get the better of him, and his like desire to sit there and taunt him, instead of actually playing it safe and playing it right, or Obi-Wan's not able to get the upper hand and cut him in half.
Yeah, and the reason why he's such a great character is because he is mysterious, right?
Right.
And,
no, that's
and
what I was
walking
before, yeah.
When you're storytelling, you're walking a fine line between giving too much information and not enough. Whereas, like the end of Game of Thrones, they didn't give any fucking information, and that's why everybody was pissed off.
He's an antagonistic force that isn't so much that gets like character development, but instead he serves a specific purpose within that story. That is, of course, like what you said earlier, Ryan, to reintroduce the Sith back to the galaxy. That's what he mainly serves.
And a recognizable evil to fight.
Right. You didn't need to know a lot more about him. You weren't getting all this extra depth. You weren't being taught that he was misunderstood. You just understood this guy's bad. He needs to be stopped. But now there's a greater evil that's growing. So we have to be ready for it.
Because here's the thing, you could make the same arguments that are made about Darth Maul, about how much more we wish we could see from him and so much more of a story we want to know. I think there's ways that you can flesh those out, and I think books are a great way to do that. But the desire to bring characters back to life to continue those stories, I think, is absolutely farcical, and it damages everything. It means that nothing has stakes anymore. So when the executive producer for the Darth Maul show gets asked, hey, is it possible we could see Maul again, even though we've seen his on-screen death twice now, And he says, hey, you never know, it's possible. Fuck off with that. But that's what you've done. Like, that's what death means in Star Wars now, which is nothing. And you're already dealing with a world in which there is a possibility to have some impact in life after death in the form of Force ghosts. So you already have sometimes where characters will die and they still can have an impact. So like when you already have that element and now you're adding, well, anybody, no one's ever really gone. Anyone that died can come back at any time. It's a problem. And
yeah, it also takes away from the third movie, because the whole point of the third movie was that they could bring people back to life, right? Or that's why Anakin was kind of like going crazy over, but yeah, and if you minimize that to like anybody can just come back to life, that it minimizes the story in general.
It takes the stakes away, like you were saying too, Ryan. And then we've seen him technically, like you said, 2 on-screen deaths. And like I said, as far as I'm concerned, he died in Phantom Menace. His spine was severed. His spine was severed. His brain stem was severed.
The man had no asshole. How did he shit for decades?
I know that.
Now we're asking the real question.
Dark Side's holding Anakin's crippled body together and stuff and everything. His freaking spine wasn't severed. Okay, he lost some limbs. He was burned to shit, but that's a different story. Okay, so
yeah, he's a bionic. Whatever.
Yeah.
But can we really say he's a threat though, since his pee might have burned off? I'm just saying.
Hey, that's Vader too. So I think that when you look at the 3 kind of sub antagonists, because one of the things this is not Darth Maul's story. This is not Count Dooku's story. This is not General Grievous's story. So when you look through the prequels, you have 3 sub antagonists that are present in each movie that are the antagonists of that movie, but overall Palpatine is the big bad of the series and of the saga and of everything. So you have Darth Maul, Dooku, and Grievous, and they all represent different elements of Anakin, or eventually what Anakin will become. Maul is just this kind of like unsatiable rage monster, right? Who constantly lets his anger and rage get the better of him, and that's what fuels him. That's what powers him. We see Anakin struggle with that throughout his time. Dooku is a fallen Jedi who's lost trust and faith in the Jedi Order, and his line of thinking is much different than even a traditional Sith's or something like that. It's not as pure evil, I would say, as somebody like Sidious. It's different. He actually thinks that this is like almost for the betterment of the galaxy if the Sith were to rule, because the Jedi have lost their way and he's lost faith in them, which is kind of where we see Anakin like get to the point of. And then Grievous is the, biological, mechanical hybrid monstrosity who's doing, Sidious's bidding that Vader turns into. So I think all of those 3 characters, they weren't meant to live on beyond that. They're all meant to represent parts of Anakin and Vader. Like that. That's what it's always kind of meant to me.
Do you think it's how you manage the midi-chlorians or something? Like, I'm trying to think of this in a scientific standpoint. Like, how do you, what makes you go to the dark side of the, or stay in the light, I guess. I
mean,
can you ask the question again?
How do you manage the midi-chlorians? Is that how it's going in the universe, or as far as like who could be a Jedi or a Sith? Like,
midi-chlorians are just going to be like your force potential, right? Like that's
so
all.
So it's up to your brain still. Like it's just
it's up to you as a decision maker, and certainly depending on the life you've lived, it can probably highly influence your decision making and the things that you've been through, or in the same way that in our society, no one's the same. We're all fucking different. So like your life experiences, my life experiences are different. Does that give me just cause to go on a murder rampage or something because I had some trauma in my past life? Not necessarily, but it can make people more susceptible to certain things based on what they've been through. Midichlorians are simply like the way you should think of them is just your force potential. Not necessarily that, hey, if you have this many midichlorians, you're automatically this powerful. But if you go through the training and all of these things, you have the potential to be this strong.
My question is, does it augment your brain potential to potentially go into whatever area you're going in? You know what I mean? I'm starting to go this way, and then all of a sudden the midi chlorians kick in. And it's like you're fucking down that path now. Like
No, it's nothing like that.
Well, I mean, if anything,
Go
sorry, go ahead, Isaac. Go ahead.
No, you go, Ronan. I'll go.
All right. I'll just say real quick. I think if anything, when it comes to like whether you're led down the the light side of the force or the dark side, think of it in the same way that like we would view sin here in the real world, right? And the temptations of sin. When you're exposed to that kind of stuff, exposed to like the sentiments of like power or vice or greed or like the ability to like actually essentially give into those more base or carnal kind of desires. You could kind of view the temptations of the dark side of the force in a similar manner as well. The more that you are exposed to that, the more potential there is that you could actually fall into it. Now, if you are more surrounded by, of course, like folks of the Jedi or just folks who, veer on the side of the light, then you're more likely to just actually be one with the force in terms of the light side. That's just kind of how I would perceive it.
I've seen it very similarly, Ronan, in the sense of I've always seen midichlorians as almost a representation of IQ. Actually, it's your power scale essentially, and just like real life religion. If you become a Christian, if you have high midichlorians, high IQ, you might become a theologian. Might become a priest. You might become a pastor. Or if you have a lower IQ, lower midichlorians, you can still be a Christian, Jedi, whatever. I'm just using as a comparison. You might not be a theologian, though. You might not achieve that power scale. You can still be in the light side or the dark side. But I look at it as it's kind of your power scale rating, your receptiveness to the use of the force is the way I've seen it. So
it's like somebody can have just a ton of God-given talent for music. And they can do things that maybe no one else could, like at a certain point in time when they got on a piano or picked up a guitar, like just kind of inherently. However, if they don't practice, if they don't hone their skills, if they're fucking lazy, then they might not achieve what they could potentially be. Whereas somebody that might not have that God-given skill, same thing in any kind of sport or whatever, but they work their ass off and they're driven, maybe they can actually become a better football player or a better musician or whatever than this person with all the skill in the world.
And drive, sometimes drive can actually overcome your weaknesses too, which is pretty awesome. But go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, Ryan, I want to ask you because so over the past episodes we've been doing this, the one thing we've been watching was some of the AI videos that's been coming out, and there's some pretty good ones, especially on the Count Dooku. Because it looks like they went back to the EU. And listen, we know if they ever thought about doing a Count Dooku show, they would just ruin it like everything else. But the Count Dooku that we've seen has been pretty damn good, where it actually brings. I was like, I like Count Dooku, but I was liking him more when we saw some of this AI. So your thoughts on Dooku and what potentially could have been done in the EU books? Because I know I've always said, if I had the money to buy Star Wars, I know who I'm giving it to. I'm giving it to you because you know what's up when it comes to Star Wars and the EU and how it should be done.
Dooku is an interesting, he is an interesting character. And he comes from a really, really, really rich family. And if he hadn't become a Jedi, he would have had he would have lived in wealth and power and privilege and all of these things. And eventually when he leaves the Jedi Order, he does kind of return to that. But he always has that air of superiority around him, even while he is still a Jedi. And it's obviously it's very interesting that our Jedi lineage is here. Yoda trained Dooku, Dooku trains Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon trains Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan trains Anakin. Like all these characters are very connected. And when it comes to the AI stuff, I think it's cool, like for people to put that stuff out. I typically don't give a fuck because like it might be a cool 10-minute video to watch. And in the same way that any random like fan theory video or fan fiction video or something about Game of Thrones or Harry Potter, or whatever your favorite franchise might be, it can be like cool to listen to, but I can't get too attached to them or take them too seriously. They just kind of are what they are. I know a lot of people who are like, I'd watch this as a movie before this. It's like, would you though? You're watching it on YouTube right now. You know what I mean? And there's no barrier to entry on that.
Right.
Are you
I
really
guess-
gonna are you gonna pay $30 to go to the fucking movie theater to watch an AI video? I don't think you will. Now, 15 years from now, that might be everything. So I guess
Right.
Yeah, I don't trust
I
AI
just-
at this point to produce what George Lucas has produced.
I guess the rationale is when it comes to like a lot of the AI stuff, because yeah, for the past few streams we have kind of watched some of them. The thing is that the bar, and I know we shouldn't be really bringing it up all that much, but the bar for how Star Wars is nowadays is so abysmally fucking low that just somebody sitting in front of their computer with their like RTX 5090 or something and just basically rendering a 10-minute AI video that has Star Wars characters and Star Wars content in it somehow manages to be marginally or potentially a little bit more entertaining than just about anything that's being churned out right now. Again, bar's kind of low, so it wouldn't really take a whole lot to try and make
if you have a
something that's
series
better.
of clips, if you have a series of clips like that where you have an actual director with an actual focus, then it will work. It will
what I
work,
mean,
and it's going to happen too.
I think
gonna
the better perspective would be, and this is just how I would see it, using the AI to just kind of like create and lay the foundation,
Yes.
and then you get an actual film crew to actually enhance it and do a much better job at get actual actors.
I see that.
Don't
the
have to
exact same way,
replicate everything that's going in there, but you could take the bare bones ideas of what's happening and
Use
kind of
AI to
make
fill in the
something.
gaps that you normally wouldn't have to fill by being with a big old company or whatever. So
Now, of course, the other
you
thing-
see, the thing is, back then the writing was so much better than it is now.
Oh, that's
And,
the other thing I was going to bring up. Is you'll need a
expanded
good writing
universe,
team.
the
absolutely.
expanded universe
Right.
writing, like all those books back then were so well written,
Mhm.
and if they found a way to interpret them into this new medium like they are, it's just going to get better. Now it's not so great, but maybe someday you can enter a prompt, say, hey, make a movie of this book that was written in 1995, and it might be okay, but we're not there yet.
I think
No,
one
no,
thing
no.
for me is that with those AI videos that we have been watching, knowing that they are adapting EU material, but someone is sitting there typing all that stuff in to make it happen. That the person behind that screen making that happen is someone who is knowledgeable about Star Wars and who is passionate about that. And that's, I think, one thing that's kind of been lost is that when we watch those videos, yeah, it's AI, yeah, they're short, but you can tell that the person who made that clip knows Star Wars and loves Star Wars. And that is something that's lost. You can tell in a lot of the modern things. It's just you don't feel a love of Star Wars there.
But the
whereas-
problem with some of these clips, though, is they're way too long, and they need somebody like from HBO to.
They
tell
need
them
better
how to
editing.
produce. They need
I fully
producers.
agree, Magnum. I just
They
want to
need
say
very
to appeal to Ryan's point, I would not pay $30 to go see an AI video personally. If I can see it on YouTube still, maybe in 15 years, like you said, but it does give us something. We're in a desert and we just got a drop of water. It's something, especially not paying for seeing it. It gives you a visualization of what could be. Like we said, a lot of these EU stories we grew up with, read, to at least get something. And yeah, it's still AI at the end of the day, but it's something.
Yeah, and I think that really the kind of hype surrounding a lot of the Star Wars AI videos that are out right now, I don't think it's really very realistic. I think it truly is just a result, like some of you guys said, of how bad the state of Star Wars is right now. And people are so desperately clinging for anything. And and I'll say again, I appreciate the passion that goes behind whatever people are doing, whether it's fan fictions or bringing a pre-existing story to life and taking your time and energy to do something like that. I respect it and I appreciate it. But AI videos, to me, ironically, have one of the same problems that a lot of Disney content has right now. It has no soul. You're looking at you're looking at something that there's just no soul behind it. And it just isn't super appealing to me.
Yeah, you kind of need an actor, like
It's-
an actual actor that knows what he's doing, or
It's
whatever.
it's a fair assessment.
You need a
on
whole
it
crew.
is, because you can still tell that when something's made with AI, there's something still off about
The
it.
emotions are not quite there yet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Ooh, go ahead.
go ahead, Ronan.
Yeah, I was just going to try and bring it back a little bit more on like some of the topics actually, because we were talking about Dooku earlier. I'm actually really interested because, again, relating a little bit to some of the AI stuff we were discussing before. I remember we were watching one Star Wars AI video that had Dooku, and it was, I believe, Qui-Gon's Force Ghost. Now, there's something that I always find really fascinating with those two characters at the very least, like the kind of dynamic that potentially exists with them. And I remember before, Ryan, earlier you were saying that Dooku's an interesting character because, he comes from a rich family. He could have, stayed just being rich instead, but he joined the Jedi Order, then left the Jedi Order, and then ended up becoming a Sith, but was trying to essentially change the galaxy, and not such an evil way, but yes, he was still working with the dark side of the Force. A lot of people, a lot of fans look at Qui-Gon in, I don't want to say in a similar light, but they look at him in a peculiar light where even though he is a member of the Jedi, he doesn't really agree wholeheartedly with a lot of the stuff that the Jedi does. I'm not going to jump to the assumption that, oh, he's a great Jedi. He's a great Jedi. We're not going to talk about that bullshit, because the whole gray Jedi stuff is more or less just some kind of fan creation for somebody that wants to make their OC super powerful or whatever. But like, how do you personally see like Qui-Gon and Dooku in terms of like I guess maybe two sides of the potential same coin? Like, how do you see that, if you possibly see something like that there?
I 100% agree, and I think Qui-Gon's point of view is certainly heavily influenced by Dooku and Dooku's like, sometimes he would just go his own way type of thing, you know what I mean? And very hesitant and questioning, the Jedi Council. I think that Qui-Gon takes it to a place, and maybe this is because Dooku was teaching these things, but not necessarily, like, maybe teaching it from the right perspective, even if inside he had kind of the wrong perspective, but didn't necessarily want to reveal all of those things. Qui-Gon is not a gray Jedi. I hate the term gray Jedi, all this bullshit. Qui-Gon is actually the truest example of what a Jedi should be. Qui-Gon listens to the Force, right? He doesn't like being bound to governmental authorities or to a council of 12 Jedi. Like, if the Force is telling him something and speaking to him and working through him, that's what he thinks the right thing to do is. And so that is actually the purest example of what a Jedi should be. The Jedi at this point in the prequels, after, millennia and millennia, had become a little too restrictive and adherent to the whims of the government. That, of course, the Jedi and the Republic go hand in hand, but that's not necessarily the purpose of the Jedi. The reason they exist and their entire core of what they are is about serving the Force. And if your government's wishes go against what the Force is telling you to do, that is all of a sudden a conflict. And it is clear and obvious that the Jedi had lost their way, and we see what happens to them, and we see everything that happens as a fallout because of these things, because they were controlled and played by a government that didn't exactly have the best intentions, especially when who is in charge of it. And so I dislike the use of the term gray Jedi, and it's like a way to, people love it because it's like a video game thing. Because people love using dark side Force powers. So people will play through video games and you have dark side Force powers, but you're actually a good guy. And they desperately wish to see a gray Jedi represented in reality.
Ever since Tony Soprano came out, every single company is trying to make another Tony Soprano, and they're trying to make Tony Sopranos out of the gray character. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it only goes so far. I can only like certain characters at a point, like, but That's what I'm saying. But whatever.
Actually, Filthy Casual in the chat also mentioned it as well too. I was going to mention Knights of the Old Republic. It's kind of the same thing, where you have, dark side powers, but you could still technically be aligned with the light side. So, he's got a good point when it comes to the video game logic on it.
Right. And I think that, look, I think video games are fucking awesome. I think there's a ton of awesome Star Wars video games, but I think that when you have those choices to play as that, it does sometimes, I think, feed into, like, people look at KOTOR 2 and the way that Kreia views the Force and talks about the Force throughout the entire thing. And it's very interesting, the conversations that she brings up and the point of view that she has in her perspective. I think a lot of people take that and they think that's what the Force is, or that's the right way to look at it. And maybe you disregard the fact that at the end of that game, she's the fucking villain. Like, she is the villain, and she's trying to manipulate you through this entire thing. But yeah,
I agree. We shouldn't take women's advice on religion. I fully agree on that. So.
On anything, really.
There you go.
Wouldn't be voting either.
I also wonder, talking about the that sense of the independent streak that people then turn into being a gray Jedi that you see with someone like Obi-Wan, in line with Dooku, how Dooku's aristocratic background would affect his tendency to want to be more independent, whereas Qui-Gon would come from a background of not having an aristocratic background, but still being able to adopt that kind of that sense of, I'm going to think for myself, I'm going to listen to the living Force, that's independent streak, but without an ingrained, like, from birth, I'm just better than people. So I always thought that was kind of an interesting way that Dooku's independence would have actually been, if anything, kind of refined, or had that superiority stripped out in someone like Qui-Gon, who doesn't have a background like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So I definitely think that's a factor.
Yeah, and it seems like Luke Skywalker had to come from nothing to be the hero, I guess. Or at least that's how they portrayed it. So
I've also viewed Count Dooku as a bit of a ends justify the means type of guy. Yeah, I mean, he was a Sith. He was
Certainly
in the
by
dark
the
side.
end.
He was not a in the gray. He was doing evil stuff. I do think he had different motives. We know he had different motives than
The
Palpatine.
Plagueis book, I think, is a very great example of the way in which Palpatine, manipulated Dooku into becoming who he was. And it was not about, we could perpetuate a bunch of evil on the galaxy. It was about what's best for the galaxy.
Yes.
Like that's the way that Dooku was really seduced into doing this entire thing, was the problems that he had with the Jedi, the problems that he had with the current government structure, the problems he had with some of the events that were taking place. And really, Qui-Gon dying was like the final straw for him.
And it definitely appealed to his noble background
They
as
believed
well.
in the Empire, right? So they started to believe in the Empire based on what they're seeing across the galaxy or something like that.
Dooku saw lawlessness and he craved law and order. It's the way I'm seeing it too.
And then
he was
it just
promised
went
that.
too far. Right. And so you believe in the Empire and it just goes too far. And then it starts to become oppressive. But I sound like a leftist.
Ryan, I want to go into, I guess, Revenge of the Sith a little bit, but well, actually no, let's go to the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, and then I guess into Revenge of the Sith, because one of my favorite characters is General Grievous.
Yes.
When he and I know there was I was reading somewhere, like, he was in the background on Geonosis while the battle was happening with the clones. So that's just something I read, but I'm not sure if that's up to light. But what was your take, going from a character like Maul to Grievous?
So I think Grievous is a really cool character. Do I like love him? I don't know if I love him, but I think he's cool and he's interesting. And I really like the way the Clone Wars micro series portrayed him. Now that is all a stylized, animation. But the ferocity and the terror that Grievous has and that he strikes into, like the fear that he strikes into the enemies and the clear and present threat that he is, I think it very much tracks what's presented in that series with the threat that we hear he is in Revenge of the Sith. And the reason that they have to send a master, the reason they have to send Obi-Wan, a master of defense, of Sarisu defensive technique, in order to take on Grievous. Because if you just watched, I don't know, Dave Filoni's Clone Wars series, you would think that, man, you throw a couple Padawans at him, he'll probably run away or some shit or whatever. Because he just gets nerfed to all hell in TCW. But the micro series is great. And like the little horror element with him just going in there and like just murking different Jedi, and people are truly frightened of him. He is a real threat to the Jedi. And I just don't think we really get that in
and he was actually competent as well, whereas Dave Filoni's bullshit made him a clown, incompetent, leaderless, no leadership ability whatsoever. Whereas you can see he actually had drive and motive, and he was able to he was a ferocious animal in the 2D. Like you said, he dismembered some Jedi. It was pretty savage. So, whereas in 2008, he's a coughing illiterate, essentially.
Yeah, he's incompetent at everything he does,
Yeah, exactly.
and depends entirely on different technologies and things that are easily undermined. It's a letdown compared to like what we had seen before.
Yeah.
It
I
oversaturates
like
his character,
Clone Wars
too.
micro series. It's obviously not very long. I mean, it's what, 3 or 4 hours long. You can sit there, maybe even less, and you can watch the entire thing. It is heavily stylized, but I feel like Anakin acts like Anakin in it, which is like, that's kind of important. I think that when you're taking a story that's starting, a month or two after the events of Attack of the Clones and everything they went through, the idea that Anakin suddenly is just this completely different fucking person and acts differently, has a different way of speaking, has a different attitude about it. Like, I don't buy it. I also don't buy that he got given a fucking Padawan. But
Yes.
seeing him go and chase down Ventress and that duel that he has with Ventress, I think is really cool. And also, like, it's a trial for him, truly.
And then we know why he has his scar in episode 3. I saw episode 3 before I saw the 2D Clone Wars series. I'm like, where the hell did he get that scar? And then I later on in like teenage years, I saw the series. I'm like, that's pretty badass, actually. That whole trial was incredible.
Because I just want to bring back, because even in the micro series, that one scene where all the Jedi are hiding from Grievous, and you see I can't remember who, but you see the sweat coming down, and they're all silent, and and Grievous just kind of pops upside down, and it was pretty scary because of what they had to deal with, and they made that in a way where it's just like, we're all gonna die,
Yeah, and you get to see at the end of that series, like, why Grievous now is coughing, like how he got hurt. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like that series was made to complement and go directly between and tell a little story of the major events that happened between episodes 2 and 3. And it fits perfectly. Whereas if you watch Attack of the Clones and then you watch all the Clone Wars and you watch Revenge of the Sith, you should probably be confused as fuck. It makes no sense. And also, you probably will be dead because you have shot yourself if you sat through 7 seasons of Clone Wars.
Makes no sense. Just kind of like having Samuel L. Jackson in your third movie.
Where he had a Padawan for that many years? Where did that go? Never mentioned again? Wow. I just want to say, too, I slightly disconnect Count Dooku hovering, flying a little bit in the 2D series. I wouldn't have minded seeing that in live action, but that's a little disconnect for me. There,
it is doable. Like, you can't like fly, but you can like control descent and things like that.
Right.
I want to go into because like I said, going into Revenge of the Sith, because people may not like this, but I think Revenge of the Sith has the best Star Wars opening for even the OT. And I know some people will say, well, no, A New Hope has the best opening. I think, with the Republic Star Destroyer coming in that, I think it's the greatest opening I have ever seen. Because I remember sitting in the theater when that opened, I had chills. I literally
Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie. It is. It just is.
So
No,
I just
like-
want to get
like
Ryan's
the
perspective
whole-
when you
Go ahead,
first.
go ahead, Ryan.
Oh yeah, I just want to get Ryan when you first saw that movie, when that opening shot of the I guess with the sun, and the glare going on the Republic cruiser.
I think that I agree with you. I think that that is the best opening, and I think that the original Star Wars is a fantastic opening and was probably mind blowing. Like when people watched it in theaters and saw that, but it didn't have nearly the same expectations on it. I think that the opening for Revenge of the Sith, as hyped as everybody was to see the conclusion of this saga and to see all of this, the third part of this trilogy, and obviously the finale, the final Star Wars movie, it was fucking epic. The way they slow play the music, and the music is awesome, but the way they kind of slow play it as they're going through, you get to see a little bit, and then they come over top of the ship, and you just see the massive battle taking place. It was
So
phenomenal.
Yeah,
How many
because they
years-
took what
how many
could be
years were in
overwhelming and
between?
made it watchable in such a medium. It was
How many
it was
years were in
well
between
done.
the first the prequel trilogy? Was it a couple years, or is it every year after year? I can't remember.
I think it
that?
was a few years in the
I think it
terms
was
of
3
release.
years.
3 years each.
Yeah, it's 99,
Yeah, 3 years each.
2002, 2005.
Okay, so they let it simmer for sure.
Well, no, they didn't just let it simmer in terms of like 3 years between, the second and third film. It's kind of like what Ryan said. You're talking about watching 5 previous films. First you had the original trilogy where you see the main story, and now you got the prequel trilogy where you're seeing this buildup of course, Anakin Skywalker and his descent into becoming Darth Vader. Now the third film, we finally see this ultimate climax of this, 3-act story, you could basically say. And it's
Yeah.
oh God. Well, I remember
My,
when
my
I
point
saw
is,
the-
like, if you're 11 years old on the first movie, by the time you got to the third movie, you're like 17, 18 or something.
yeah, but seeing it for the first time when I was in theaters, because I had actually seen Revenge of the Sith in theaters as well too. It was mind blowing that
Mhm.
intro. It was great. Such
Well,
good
it's always
stuff. I
been my
knew I was
favorite
in for a good
Star Wars
time.
movie, and I was 5 years old when it came out, so obviously PG-13 movie was not happening with my parents whatsoever. But to see it last year, the re-release, and I'm glad I got it day one because I did not know they were pulling it in a week, which was ridiculous because I wanted to go see it again a couple times actually. But to finally see my favorite movie ever in theaters last year was incredible. And to see it on the big screen, the bass, the sound, everything is just
Yeah.
And it
I'll
made a
never
lot of money. It made a lot of money
Bro,
for
They
It
need
was
to drop it
second.
again. They need to keep dropping these old movies in the theaters because they're making
well,
bank.
Cole Hauser, would you agree that that's why they pulled it out? Because it was showing up the Disney shit?
that's what my opinion is. Where that
Yes.
Revenge of the Sith was showing up. Sorry, well, go ahead, Ryan, because I know you got.
I don't think that's why they pulled it. So remember, I think it was the next week that Thunderbolts released or something. I think because they didn't even release it on the anniversary of the release necessarily. They just put it out for a limited time, the same way they do with all of these. I think it would have been a smart idea for them to leave it out longer because obviously people still would have gone to see it. But I think that's all they ever really intended it for to be out. That's what we see for most of these re-releases. They're only out for a little bit of time. Should they have considered extending it? Probably. But at
'Cause I
this
saw the
point,
episode-
if it was about not showing it up, fuck, they would have put it out for one day, or they would put it out for 1
Because
weekend
I
and
saw
never
the
done
episode
anything again.
25th anniversary, and it felt like that was out longer. Like at least a couple weeks it did. I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah,
but
I think so because I did see Phantom Menace when it re-released,
Same.
and I loved it. I was so hyped to get to the theater watch that again. And some people go, "What? You want to watch?" Yeah, Phantom Menace is one of my
Yes.
favorites.
Duel
Bro,
of the Fates on the big
so
screen, dude,
what
was
I want
incredible.
What I want is a outdoor theater in like the middle of nowhere where they just play drive-in theater where they have like the food trucks and stuff and they just play Indiana Jones front to back.
Oh yeah.
I'm hoping for next year, 2020. The thing is, I don't want to give Disney any money since they own the IP now. I feel guilty about that genuinely. And but next year, 2027, 25th anniversary of Attack of the Clones, I'm hoping so I can see every prequel in the theater. It's only been episode 2. I haven't seen the big screen, so
it's funny because me and Ryan did talk about this last year, and it was about, do I want to give Disney my money, but I want to watch this in the theater again. I do, because I think I saw it maybe like 3 times when it first came out, and I watched it 3 times last year when they re-released. I watched it literally on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday because I want to watch it in the theater again. You know what? Watching that movie, okay, that's great on a home theater, but when you're in a theater watching that on a big screen, nothing beats it.
No, the theater honestly does not beat like just a regular home theater. I remember different film franchise, but when it came to Godzilla -1, I think I watched that almost 3-4 times in the theaters because I knew for a fact that experience you could only get watching in theaters. So it's the same thing with the prequel films with Star Wars. Definitely, I kind of missed out on the re-releases when they were out. If there is a 25th anniversary re-release for Attack of the Clones next year, that definitely going for it. I'm absolutely going for it.
I really enjoyed my experience, especially for episode 3. Made sure to go to a theater in a small town, not very diverse area, so there was no speakerphones or people talking on their phone. It was a very pleasant experience. So
lucky
really
you.
I know. Yes, I went out of my way for that, to really embrace the moment. No
Ryan can tell you some stories.
Oh boy,
He probably shouldn't.
It's always a gamble, It's always a gamble,
especially in a big city.
Well, and then even I go to Super Mario Brothers. It's like, okay, it's not black people I got to worry about. It's fucking autistic nerd weirdos.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So all of your friends.
Isaac feels called out now.
I'm the only person in my neighborhood that speaks English.
Call Ice, you might make some money, dude.
I fucking love it. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Oh my goodness.
On that note,
so Ryan, going for the expanded universe, because we know there's a ton of books out there, and the fact that Disney killed them all. What would you say is, I guess, trying to bring a legacy when, for those books? Because I know people are always asking you, hey, Ryan, where should I start? What should I read first? Where should I go into? What do you tell people when it comes down to expanded universe?
So when it comes to the EU, I kind of ask people, well, what do you like? Right? Because like, what are you interested in hearing about? And if you're like, I really like the Old Republic stuff or whatever, then I'll say, okay, maybe you should read like the Darth Bane trilogy, or maybe I'll recommend Deceived, which is part of the tie-in with the SWTOR video game. If you're interested in like the prequel era or Anakin's turn or whatever, I'll say, okay, go read like the Darth Vader trilogy, which takes place. God, I keep forgetting the name of the first one.
Heir to the Empire.
No.
No, that was the Dark Lord trilogy, right?
Yes, the Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader is the third one. Revenge of the Sith is the second one. The first one, it has Grievous on the front and Anakin on the front, and it is called Labyrinth of Evil. Thank you, Spider Unlimited. So Labyrinth of Evil, which takes place immediately before Revenge of the Sith. Then the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which is a fucking banger. Everybody should read it. I don't care if you don't want to read any other Star Wars book. If you like the prequels and if you like Revenge of the Sith, read the Revenge of the Sith novelization. It expands on so much and gives you so much insight into what's going on inside everybody's heads. Highly recommend it. And then immediately after that is Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader, which talks about the fallout and what Vader's life is now like and the guilt and anger that he feels all the time and the constant pain that he's in, how he has to change the way he moves and fights because of his limitations, all that shit. So
one thing I would like to see is like, what's the background story of all these planets? That's what I would like to see. Or read
Well,
about.
I mean, even in the expanded universe, we all love Coruscant so much from the prequels. The expanded universe gave us Coruscant, I think in the 90s, right? The mid early 90s. I think it was the Thrawn trilogy, right?
I believe the Thrawn trilogy were the ones to name Coruscant, if I recall. And then if you say, well, I'm really interested to know what happened after, like what happened right after, I watched Return of the Jedi and I saw this, what happened after, then I'd say, all right, go read the Thrawn trilogy. The original Thrawn trilogy, not this fucking sellout piece of shit Zahn trilogy that exists in the Disney canon where he tried to somewhat bring Thrawn in a lesser way. Read the original Thrawn trilogy, starting with.
You mean the fat Thrawn that every loss is actually a win in modern era with Disney?
Yeah.
So.
Now, if you are if you're a fan of all the prequels, I would recommend Darth Plagueis. That's what I would recommend because I think it's well written in general, but it gives you so much background on a lot of the events that happen in the prequels when it comes to the trade war and what's going on Naboo and why this is all taking place, when it comes to the idea and why and how they decided to create the clone army and the machinations that went into that. You get a lot of good Palpatine stuff. Obviously, you get a lot of good Plagueis stuff because it's called Plagueis. So
Plagueis was not made up by Disney. It was an actual character from a book that had some decent stuff going on.
Well, if you remember the scene in Revenge of the Sith with at the opera, and Palpatine turns to Anakin and says, "You ever heard of Darth Plagueis the Wise?"
Okay.
Like that's his story, and and you can kind of tell, like when he's telling this story, and he's like, he taught his apprentice everything he knew, and then the apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself. He's talking about the story of him killing his master.
He got him drunk, didn't he? Isn't that what he did?
Yes.
The story of the Sith is kind of like a story of tragedy, right? Like every Sith Lord had some sort of tragic happenings, and then it turned them into some evil bastard. Right?
It's funny you kind of describe it that way too, Ryan, because I remember, again, when I was young, after the movie had its course in theaters and everything, we watched it again in on home video and everything. The first time I actually watched it, it was with the first time I watched it at home with my sister, and she saw that scene. She was like kind of connecting the dots for me on that as well too, because I didn't initially pick up that's what Palpatine was explaining, but it was, my sister actually not the biggest Star Wars fan, but she likes, the prequels as well too. She explained that whole thing to me. It was like, oh, okay, I see. It was Palpatine's story that he's explaining to him now. Now it makes sense. But I did want to ask you though, because I know you're explaining like the Thrawn trilogy and the Dark Lord trilogy as well too. Because when I was growing up playing a lot of the N64 Star Wars games, the one that I always repeatedly played was Shadows of the Empire. That's the one that I really got sold on as well too. I'm trying to remember if there was like a comic book series or an actual book that came out for Shadows of the Empire. Do you remember it all?
There is. I would highly recommend reading the Shadows of the Empire novelization. Provides a lot of info on stuff that you don't get in the game.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Shadows of the Empire book, like in general. I think the game is fine. It's not on my list of favorite Star Wars games, even though it's on a ton of other people's. But yeah, that was a whole multimedia project, and then you even see Dash Rendar's ship show up in the special edition of A New Hope, flying out of Mos Eisley.
Well, here's a question: what is the best Star Wars video game of all time? There's a question.
That's I think that's a personal opinion thing. Yeah. I'll say too, the Revenge of the Sith game on PS2, dude. Woo! If you haven't played it, you gotta play that game, dude. Pick it up, physical media.
PS2. Okay.
Isaac, I played that before the movie came out.
So you got spoiled.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
That was the thing.
This was in an era where spoilers weren't what they are now, and obviously not everybody had the same access to the internet and social media.
They spoil the movie in the game.
yeah. So like, the game came out a week and a half before the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the Revenge of the Sith video game before I saw the movie. And
so you killed Count Dooku in the game before watching the movie.
Yeah, and also I told my friends shit that happened in it that was bullshit. Because if you remember playing that game, there is a huge fight with Anakin and Windu. And I was telling my friends, guys, dude, this is gonna be fucking awesome. There's gonna be this massive fight between Anakin and Windu. I'm hyped. I can't wait. And then it's, I need him. You know, and
Right.
flies out the window, and you're like, oh fuck. But I love that game though. That game's great.
Yes.
Was Sam Jackson in the game?
I don't know if he voiced him or not. It's been a long time
Did it
since
look
I
like him?
played it.
Kind of.
Hey,
Kind of
Ryan.
looked like him, but I don't know. I don't remember if he voiced him. So some of my favorite Star Wars games would be like KOTOR and KOTOR 2. I think those are definitely up there.
Mhm.
Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast.
Ah, yes. I
Um,
love that one so much.
Yeah.
Darn.
Jedi.
Still my favorite combat. My favorite like lightsaber combat is from that and Jedi Knight 3, Jedi Academy. Both of those games are really good.
Yeah, we've been playing Battlefront 2, and I love
The
the
new
playing a fucking Ewok. Like when like it's so fucking fun.
Oh yeah, the Ewok hunt.
You're talking about the new one, yeah?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
newest one.
2017.
Yeah, that's the
2017.
one.
I'll say 2005 Battlefront 2 is my favorite video game of all time. I played that on the Xbox probably thousands of hours as a kid. It's a goated
Knights-
game. as far
Knights
as
of
I'm
the Old
concerned.
Republic is what most people quote.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
I
That
still
one's great.
G first Battlefront, so I'm still playing that and I'm streaming that.
You stream it on
No,
your channel. Cole.
No,
It's
yeah, I
awesome.
still see you
Yeah.
stream it. It's pretty fun still, honestly. I
So
enjoy that.
definitely OG Battlefront 2 was a game I played so much of, and I actually really like the
Indeed.
campaign in that.
Yes.
Which is where you have, you know, the clones explaining how all of this stuff happened and you going planet to planet. I actually think it's well done. It's tough for me to put that like one of my favorite games of all time, because that would be like saying Call of Duty multiplayer is like my favorite game of all time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I like things that have a little bit more story to them for the most part. But yeah, I those would probably be ones that I always mention, but there's a ton of them, man. Strategy games like Empire at War,
Mhm.
Galactic
I still have that.
Battlegrounds. I loved Galactic Battlegrounds when it came out. The flight simulator games,
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Yep.
Oof.
Oh my
Great
god!
games.
Pod
I
Racer
played
wasn't
a
from
lot of that stuff.
Rogue Squadron on the N64 as well too. That was a lot of fun.
That's a great one. And then was it Rogue Leader or Rogue Squadron 2 when you could actually get out of your ship?
That was Rogue Leader, the third one on GameCube.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a mission in that in which you're Wedge Antilles and you crash land on Geonosis and you find Obi-Wan. It's really fucking stupid. You find Obi-Wan's crash starfighter and you hold off a bunch of like reactivated droids and everything, and you fix Obi-Wan's starfighter and you get in it and you're like using the seismic seismic bombs.
Oh
and
yeah,
everything.
okay.
It's
Mhm.
fucking crazy.
That sounds vaguely stupid, but at the same time, it sounds like stupid in the best kind of way. You know, where they're throwing a lot of like nostalgia in the game. It sounds really fun though.
Bro, like I'm playing Crimson Desert, and I told myself I'm not gonna play every fucking bounty because it's just a dumb fucking activity. But I just love tying people up and punching them in the face, man. It's just so much fucking fun. And so I had to do every single mission.
The one thing I'll say that I kind of liked with Battlefront 2, since we're like OG Battlefront 2, because we were talking about the campaign there, is like I think that campaign's probably the one reason why I'm a huge 501st Legion fan. Like I absolutely love, you know, the 501st Legion when it comes to the clones. I know there's like a lot of other different regiments that exist. The only one I was ever made aware of was the 501st, mainly because of the Battlefront 2 storyline, but that's honestly still my favorite to this day.
Well, the fact that was voiced by Tamara Morrison, just like the
That too.
simulations. I mean,
Mhm.
that gets me every single time.
Yeah,
So,
Commander Cody's my favorite in the 212.
nice.
Ryan, we just got one question for you from Spider Unlimited. Question: I'd like the MedStar books, but felt they could have been one story. What is your thoughts?
I'm not a huge fan of the MedStar books. The prequel era books is not the strongest part, in my opinion, of the expanded universe, because I think they were a little bit limited in the stories that they could tell. Now, a lot of people love the Republic Commando, books and stuff from that era. But in terms of the MedStar duology, I think that there's a lot of people that look favorably on them. I find them a little bit boring. I agree. It could have just been one book. And I've never been the biggest fan of the MedStars, even though a lot of people are. So I probably agree with you, Spider.
Can I just ask Ryan too? Do you still have your massive book collection? I saw your video back in the day, early part of your channel. It's like you had what, close to 200 books, right?
Probably, based on doubles and stuff. I've probably got somewhere around 130 or 140 like different novels. And then I do have doubles of some, and I've got some that I have softback and hardcover, so probably somewhere around 200. They're in the other room right now. Actually, nice. Some of them are still in boxes. Some of them on a. I'll grab a stack. I'll be right back.
Cool. Worth their weight in gold nowadays, especially with Disney reprinting with their stupid logo.
You know what I have to find is I have a autographed Thrawn trilogy from Timothy Zahn. Maybe
really, you got to show us that, Corn Boy. That's awesome.
While Ryan's doing that, I just want to say, chat. I just want to say, chat. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, just pop them up and then we'll highlight them. But yeah, thanks for being here. This is a great stream going on. We're talking about the prequels and just really appreciating that Ryan's here.
Are you not monetized yet?
I should be. I should be
monetized.
Oh yeah,
Isaac's monetized.
I should be monetized now.
Yeah, like I just grabbed a random freaking stack. I like off one of the shelves of the paperbacks I've got. So I've still got them. They're everywhere.
Oh wow.
So you have the Darth Maul book? Nice.
That's the Darth Maul Shadowhunter book I was talking about. This takes place a little bit before Phantom Menace. And I've always loved that.
And if you're gonna adapt any story, I mean that should be the extracurricular Darth Maul story, in my opinion.
Yeah, before he died, not after.
I'm not a book reader, but like what do book readers do? They sit on a couch and read a book? Like how does that work?
how does reading work?
Literacy does help.
Is Shatterpoint between 2 and 3?
Do you have any classical music in the background or like
Shatterpoint is actually from Mace Windu's perspective. It's one of the only Mace books that we have. One of the only Mace stories.
Yes, they deserve to die. And I hope they burn in
Does
hell.
it go into his practice of the pod at all? I've never read.
It does a lot, and he says the N-word. So.
Oh, nice, dude.
The concept of Shatterpoints in the Force, I've always thought was kind of interesting, like that lore aspect of what a Shatterpoint is.
I have that in hardcover. I just picked it up. Nice.
You got the new one, Isaac?
No, I have I have a original print without the Disney logo on it. I have episode 1, 2, and 3 novelization in hardcover. The original.
Because they just re-released that one.
They did. The thing is, I have this in hardcover, the original hardcover somewhere, and the brand new one that released with notes from Matthew Stover in the margins. And it's fucking awesome.
I have an autistic thing where I can't buy anything Star Wars that has a Disney logo on it. I mean, I know there's
don't do it, bro.
Been some kind of cool products, like for instance, like the Gina Carano stuff like that. But I can't. So
well, I mean, funding what they're doing is just
kind of
not
sucks.
good. It's not good at all.
Is that Qui-Gon's lightsaber?
I think like it's green, so maybe. So this book I think kind of sucks. And I would not recommend reading it, but there's a lot of tie-ins to stuff that ended up happening after. It takes place really quickly. I mean, you can see how young Anakin is. It takes place very quickly after Phantom Menace. It's kind of a difficult read. I've got the other version somewhere. This is the shitty cover of The Courtship of Princess Leia. There's a much better cover in which she looks really hot.
That just looks right out of Return of the Jedi right there.
That's how they did them in the 90s.
Yeah, so I just got some random stuff hanging around here. Oh, did I show you this one? Here you go. This is the man.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
That's a badass cover. Metallic. Hell yeah.
Dude, I want that outfit. I'm just going to go on a fucking rampage.
Yeah. So yeah, I've still got them. They're around.
Nice.
What do you think? I'd get rid of it?
I hope not. I mean, they're worth their weight in gold now.
I've
They're
been
not making-
lugging these hundreds of pounds worth of books around with me for my fucking entire adult life, and I'm not going to stop. So.
You're
So are you
preserving
from? Are you
history.
from Chicago area or where are you from?
Chicago area, Northwest Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Same.
Okay. Yeah, so I worked in Libertyville for the for 3 years. You know where that is? That's North Chicago, basically.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever been through there, but yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like
whatever.
45 minutes east of Chicago is where I grew up.
Chicago is fucked.
Depends where you're at.
Okay.
I've never visited.
No, it
It's
doesn't.
a
No,
little on the
it's
diverse
getting.
side from what I've heard.
No, it's
in some of the
getting
areas.
so. I mean, the fucking governor is making it so bad now. Like whatever. But I don't want to talk politics. Let's get back. To
Ryan,
Back to the prequels.
back to the
question
point.
from Vincent Wolf 78. I love General Grievous. Was wondering, could he have been a Force user or a Sith Lord despite being mostly machine?
Probably not. Like he has so little actual biological parts left. One of the things when it comes to midichlorians and force potential and stuff like that, say you lose a bunch of your limbs, it actually is going to stunt your force potential because you don't have as much like living tissue and living organisms in your body for you like those midichlorians to exist in. So because he is so little actual biological, I don't know if he would have enough to be able to do anything, but
Can you remind me, was it Grievous that they actually tried experimenting, like infusing Jedi blood into at one point and it didn't really do anything, but they tried it?
I don't know if that was Grievous. So like Grievous was manipulated into becoming who he was and like hating the Republic, basically. It was a plan to fucking take out a bunch of people. He got really injured in the attack, but they were like, "Oh, look what the Republic's done to you, and you need revenge on these people."
Yeah, they
blah blah blah.
framed
They
it.
manipulated this like really good warrior and leader into becoming their tool, and in the process, he got really fucking injured and fucked up, and they remade him into this monstrosity. I don't know if I remember the Jedi blood thing for him or not. It could be. I might be
there was some
forgetting it.
vague off thing where they tried to infuse him with like Sifo Dyas's blood or something, but I'm also blending 1,000 things together, I'm sure.
Yeah, I believe Grievous. It was they planted a bomb, Dooku and Palpatine on his ship, right? As he
I
was
think so,
back-
yeah.
That was him.
Yeah, right.
That's
yeah.
the right.
Yep.
Just another one. Panos thoughts of the rumor that Lucas wanted to bring Maul back with Talon and his apprentice for his sequel trilogy.
So there have obviously been a million different reports about what George wanted for his sequel trilogy, and I think a lot of them conflict with each other. So there's a story about one time when Darth Talon became a very popular character, and George was like walking through Lucasfilm and he saw two statues of like Talon and Maul like somewhere, and he like put them close together. He's like, they look like they belong together, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, maybe we should think about a story with them. And they were thinking about maybe doing a video game or something. And they're like, well, George, that doesn't make any sense because, you know, they exist in completely different time periods. And he's like, well, maybe it can be a descendant or a clone or something. Well, we can look into it. Like, that's the level of, I think, thought process that went into this entire thing. So the way that the Maul Shadow Lord is being pitched as if this is Lucas's vision coming to life, it's just more bullshit. I think when you hear, we've heard a lot of different stories about the sequel trilogy and what it would entail. And could that have been a part of it? Maybe. It would have been a retarded idea.
Yeah, I hope that he doesn't go down the same path as Ridley Scott. No, where he's like keep regurgitating his own stuff.
I was always under the impression, if that story was true, that the Darth Maul in that situation would have been a clone, not even a descendant. I always thought it would be a clone. Darth Maul, some Sith resurrected him, you know, through cloning, essentially. I don't think it was actually Lucas intending to bring back Darth Maul, because that's stupid. So,
right, and that because that's how this, again, that's how like he saw the two characters and Talon was becoming a popular character, and he's like, they look like they belong together. Maybe we should do something with them. And they're like, well, George, it doesn't make any sense. Like they're in completely different timelines. And he's like, well, it could be a clone or something. So.
Which, to be fair, I can understand why Darth Talon is popular. I mean, come on, it's
Yeah, she's
Sim-
hot.
Yeah.
She's evil. What's not to love?
I mean,
Question from Stormbreaker. Can you please ask Ryan, Yoda or Lord Sidious?
Like, who would I want to fuck or who would win?
Both.
I think.
yes. FMK,
should win?
FMK, Sidious, Yoda, Grievous.
Look, I mean, Yoda lost. With that being said, I think it had a lot to do with where the fight was and their positions. And look, as Yoda is stopping Palpatine's Force lightning and eventually it explodes, Palpatine flies back too. The only reason that Yoda ends up losing is he flies backwards, and like down and falls, whereas Palpatine, gets blasted backward and doesn't have a long way to fall. I feel like they're pretty evenly matched. And I think if you do that fight 100 times, I think it comes out 50-50.
Okay.
Indeed.
Stormbreaker saying who is more powerful?
Yeah. I'm gonna say Sidious is more powerful, but look, Yoda has a massive fucking midichlorian count, like the highest recorded Jedi other than Anakin. But he also has 800 plus years of experience as well, and I think that's something that we don't sometimes take into account.
Brandy Kirkchuck 3015. Question for the panel. For those who have read the X-Wing series of books by Stackpole and Alliston, which is your favorite?
Yeah, so the X-Wing series takes place almost immediately after Return of the Jedi, within a couple months or a year or so, and it's before they've recaptured Coruscant, before they really have a handhold, while they're still like this fledgling government that a lot of people don't even know whether it's going to make it or not. The Empire is still very powerful, but splintered. And X-Wing Rogue Squadron series by Michael Stackpole, and then the X-Wing Wraith Squadron series by Aaron Alston, who has passed away, unfortunately. I think I like Rogue Squadron better because I think that those stories are just tighter. However, Aaron Alston's Wraith Squadron series is more fun. The characters are he's a funnier writer. So I think they're really, you can really get attached to those characters in the reads. I prefer the Rogue Squadron series. Corran Horn's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars.
Yeah, Corran Horn is also one of my favorites, and I loved Wedge's gamble when they go undercover to aid retaking of Coruscant. That was a really good book in my opinion.
It was great. What is it? It's so Rogue Squadron, Wedge's Gamble,
Back to War,
and Krytos Trap, or maybe are those inversed? I don't remember. Krytos Trap and Back to War. Either way, but yeah. And you've got a strong, powerful female villain. Sana Sarn.
I was told we hated those, Ryan. I don't know. That goes against everything I've been told lately. Wow. Huh.
Is she black too?
There you go. So you were right, Lex. That was Grievous.
Vindication.
And then
there is one question I have about the books. Sorry, Cole Hauser.
No, go, Ronan.
I don't know if Ryan, if you've ever read this series of books before. I think what was the artist's name? Author's name. I think it was Joe Schreiber or something like that. But he wrote two books that were known as Death Troopers and Red Harvest, which basically you're combining Star Wars with zombies, essentially. Now, the first time I'd ever heard of that, I found that to be really like kind of. I felt like the two genres, shall we say, or the two concepts just don't seem to fit with each other. Have you ever read them before? And what are they like? What do you think of them?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of reminiscent a little bit of that Death Troopers cover with this Stormtrooper here.
Right.
So I have read them. I'm not massive fans of the books. I'm not a huge horror guy. I think Death Troopers is better than Red Harvest. The thing, I actually think Death Troopers could have been a really, really good book. The thing that brings it down as a little more average for me is Han and Chewbacca show up about halfway through the book.
Okay.
And because you like, it's in a situation where it seems like everybody could fucking die. Like it's pretty fucked up, right? And then Han and Chewie show up on this random prison in the kind of the middle of nowhere, this prison on space station. And once they show up, you're like, well, I have no tension for anything that happens to these characters because I know they're going to survive.
It pulls you out of it immediately, right? Okay.
Yeah, it kind of like lessens the stakes. I would just rather there be no main character appearances like that. Because if you're doing a book where your premise is, oh fuck, everybody could end up wiped out and dead. Well, I know they're going to survive, but they're okay. It's just like horror books aren't my thing.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
The covers are sick though.
Oh no,
the Red Harvest one with like the hand coming up and the lightsaber and everything.
I feel like
the Death
horror
Troopers
movies
cover
are
is really good too, with the hook through the stormtrooper helmet's eye. That one's really good as well.
The horror genre is hard to do, in my opinion, but at the same time, it's also the easiest way to make a ton of money. You know, like if you do it right. But
well, for movies, yeah, I agree. I don't know too much about like the book horror space. Not book whores, book horror. Horror. But for movies, yeah, I mean, because you can make them on a really low budget.
Yeah, exactly.
And they get decent returns.
Like Insidious and all that stupid ass whatever. You know?
I just don't like the genre. I think it's a low form of entertainment. It's just not for me.
Bro, Weapons is an awesome fucking movie. Everyone should watch.
It's just
Isaac
especially
gets scared easily.
I mean, but no, I mean for Star Wars, I've never read the books. Maybe I'll give them a shot. I've never read those. So
no, I'm actually definitely interested with these books now too, because
I have to agree with Ryan. The Red Harvest cover is badass, coming out of the snow with the lightsaber.
Well,
that's an awesome.
Well, it's cool to like make different genres out of your favorite, you know, whatever. Like a horror, a true horror movie from Star Wars would be cool. I think that would be cool if he could do it right.
Ryan, just here, Dorfus. Ryan has consumed every piece of Star Wars media ever created, except maybe Outlaws? Question.
I don't know if that's quite true. There's plenty of the kind of young adult or kids stuff that I probably haven't read, or I've only read parts of series. There's tons of comic books that I haven't read because there's so many across so many different eras. I will say for the novelizations, I think I've probably read all of them. Some of them only once, some of them 10 times. But when it comes to novels, I've probably read all of them.
So if we can just take a trip back to the movies. So for Revenge of the Sith, and I know we can talk about this for days on end because we've talked about this before. We would love to see that 4-hour Revenge of the Sith cut if it's out there. But regarding some of the deleted scenes we get, I really enjoyed the scenes of the birth of the Alliance, the Committee of the 2000, stuff like that. I really enjoyed some of those scenes. What about you, Ryan? What is that something you would have liked to have seen in the movies?
I would have loved to have the time to take the full context of the novelization and get it all in there. And it's not realistic to release a 4-hour movie. Especially back then, it wouldn't have been like very realistic. So I get it and I understand it. And I have no qualms about the movie. I love the movie the way it is. But in a perfect world, would I like to have seen a 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith with all the other details, with Anakin's duel with Sindralig and with an extended Anakin Dooku fight sequence and an extended Palpatine fight sequence and all the different conversations and the context surrounding them around what Palpatine's doing in his conversations with Anakin. 100%.
That's what you drop it on, so people can get it at their home rather than like try to sell it to everybody,
I believe too. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think if you wanted to try and re-release it into like a 4-hour kind of thing, maybe, and I just spitballing here basically, but like a 4-episode limited micro series somehow, basically. It might
Or not
break.
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
I mean, yeah, something I was thinking that too, to be honest, but I don't know.
Well, I was thinking Lord of the Rings extended edition.
Hashtag release the Lucas cut or something.
The only
like
other,
that.
the only
Yeah.
reason why I would push back on how it's not realistically feasible on
Zack
trying to make
Snyder.
it 4 hours. Well, not no. I mean that's like recent, but the closer example I would put is like Peter Jackson's King Kong, which like that's a 3-hour movie, and
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how most audience members feel about it. I know when I was watching it as a kid, I fucking loved it.
It's good.
Dinosaurs and giant monkey fighting each other and whatnot. So I was able to sit for 3 hours to watch that. So if it was Star Wars, I wouldn't mind the extra hour myself personally. But
Well,
it's a movie.
Yeah. Well, same for me when I watched Apocalypse Now Redo, where they added another hour into it, which the movie was already like 2.5 hours anyway. So they just added.
Well, it depends on the audience. All right. So, like, if your audience wants to do it, then go ahead and sell it to them. But if you have to bring it to the audience where they want it, right? Like, so, like, if it's going to be like a 5-hour movie, I suggest putting it on streaming or something.
And it was a big gamble back then with how much those movies cost and the special effects and how long everything took to make to gamble on whether they wanted to put it in theater or try to make money off of home video sales or what was
the Lord of the
going on
Rings extended versions are making bank every time they are.
Well, I believe the reason in the case I've seen Nick Gillard comment on this for the Syndrellic fight. I don't think that was cut because of time. I think they were going to get an R rating out of that because it was so gruesome. I believe, Anakin there's some dismemberments and they had to cut it down and put it on the hologram that Obi-Wan inevitably sees. But imagine seeing that in non-hologram form. That would have been kind of cool because they filmed the whole thing. So,
well, it was the same. Yeah. And it was the same thing, I guess, like Ryan, I think you know about this, where there was actually a scene of the younglings.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Like there was, and they decided to, cut that. I understand that. Like I'm okay with them not putting that in there for the ratings and everything. Not because I would be personally offended, but because of the rating.
Yeah, because it would have been you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and with him showing him actually murdering the younglings. It would have been
that kind of makes it a curious kind of discussion then, because him murdering the younglings, I imagine a lot of fans would feel really would think that it's super out of place because, and again, I know we shouldn't be bringing it up, but this will to prove to my point basically. Andor, I don't know if it was season 2, but I think it was season 2 where they mentioned the one lady that was basically assaulted by
the rape that wasn't even a rape. You
right,
mean
that whole thing.
Rape that we didn't even see. Yeah.
Did y'all see the cut where Padme had an abortion?
Oh God. And yes, that's obviously it was a rape that didn't actually become a rape, but the fact that they dropped the word rape in the first place in that universe, it is kind of, again, I hadn't watched the show because I don't bother trying to watch any of this Disney stuff anymore. But when I'd heard about it, it felt completely out of place because it's is that something that you could even sort of imagine or envision to be part of Star Wars at all in some way, shape, or form? Or maybe that's just me that's thinking about it. But it's kind of with the younglings possibly being killed and actually being shown is what kind of limit is there when it comes to Star Wars? You know what I mean?
I think it all depends on the type of show you're making, right?
All right.
Should we be talking
Fair
about
enough.
rape in an animated children's show? Probably not.
Obviously not, yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought that whole controversy was so fucking overblown. This is a world in which Princess Leia was captured, forced to dress in a metal bikini, kept on a fucking chain while Jabba the Hutt fucking licked her face. Leia was sexually assaulted by Jabba the Hutt, by the way. That happened. And there's references to it. in the script, and like it goes off camera when you see like the end of like him planning the kiss on her. I think that was so overblown. I think there's a lot of other things to complain about, like the illegal immigrant allegories and stuff like that took place in Andor versus the idea of somebody. And I think it was on the nose for them to use the word rape when you could just tell what was happening. He raped, or he tried to rape me, or whatever she said. With that, but it in itself, of course, it's going to be in the Star Wars universe. What are we talking about? The most like. The most evil hive of scum and villainy ever. You don't think people are getting raped in fucking Mos Eisley? You don't think people are getting raped in the underworld of Coruscant? I feel like sex slaves who are fucking dancers. It's okay to see these Twi'lek slaves who are fucking dancing get dropped in a rancor pit and eaten, but heaven forbid they get fucking raped in the Star Wars universe. I just thought it was like really sanctimonious for people.
As we know, the Hutt clan is very feminist. They support women's rights totally. We know this. Yeah.
With that context,
telling me criminals do crime
now.
And you know them Sand people, man. You know about them Sand people.
Oh yeah.
What do you think happened to Shmi? What do you think happened to Shmi Skywalker while she was there?
Jeffrey Epstein Watto in here. I'm sure he had some bad moments. Yeah. So.
Okay, where's fucking Shlomo?
Moving on before we get the stream in trouble. Cole House.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
So because we got a little bit of we got some time, a little bit of time left on this. Ryan, so one of the things we've been doing was we had a thing where comparing the Star Wars movies. Like for me, I rate Empire Strikes Back #1. Then I go to Revenge of the Sith. Then I go to Attack of the Clones. Then I go to New Hope. And then I go to Phantom Menace, and then I go to Return of the Jedi, because I still think I don't like Return of the Jedi because of what they did. I still think if you had if you have the Commander Cody and the clones on Endor, that mission would have been completely different. And also, they had an AT-AT on Endor. What happened to it? So that's why I rank Return of the Jedi last. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's your ranking. I would say that if you're gonna get into some of those, like, hey, they had this, and why didn't they? Man, there's a lot of stuff in the prequels we could make those arguments about too. For me, it's gonna go Empire, Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace is probably going to be my order. Now, some of those aren't separated by a lot or anything, and I don't think any of them are bad, and I love all of them. But that would probably be my order. I might be able to make Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Return of the Jedi. Maybe flip that around here and there, but yeah, I think that's probably my ranking.
Because I was just not a fan of the Ewoks. That's what just
come on, man. Ewoks are the best.
You know what? And I know there was talk about they were supposed to be Wookiees instead, but we got Ewoks, and they basically
Ewoks worse than Jar Jar Binks. I mean, come on. Jar Jar Binks is worse than Ewok.
I don't even hate Jar Jar. I think he was actually a pretty okay character, personally.
But compared to Ewoks, the Ewoks are great.
I just want to say, in terms of Return of the Jedi, I think Gary's assessment is actually pretty spot on, where he says it's 50% a 10 out of 10 movie, 50% like a 5. And the throne room scene is extremely compelling.
Yes.
And there's a lot of other mixed stuff in that movie, for sure. But there's some very good moments in that movie. So,
yeah, and I'm not denying that, but like I guess because the for me, Phantom Menace is the Duel of Fates. So, and there's a bit more, and I get it. There is a lot of space battle going on, but that's how I see it. And of course, I hate the special edition of Return of the Jedi, because when they brought in the stupid singing and all that stuff, and Boba Fett, like, trying to hit on the girls, and just a bunch of stuff.
What are they supposed to do after they win the war? What are they supposed to do? Not dance and?
Well, no, not. I mean, in
he's
Jedi's
talking about
palace.
in Jabba's palace. Yeah,
Jabba's palace.
I don't know
like
how
that
the rest
song.
Didn't like the song? Come on.
I gotta say,
really-
getting rid of Yub Nub at the end is a war crime as far as
I
I'm
agree.
concerned. Yub Nub nationalism all the way. I'm not gonna compromise on that personally.
I think the only reason I knew about Yub Nub in the first place was because of Battlefront 2. When you would play Galactic Assault on Tatooine with heroes and villains, they would switch out a bunch of songs. Yub Nub would be one of them. That's the only reason I knew
Yeah.
about Yub Nub. But I gotta say,
goes
the
hard.
special, like, say what you will about the special editions, it is kind of the ones that I grew up with. So because of that, I got a bias towards the little dance number that happens in Jabba's palace.
I love the Ewoks because they're just a tiny bit racist, you know.
And they ate people.
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
So I guess we're gonna, because I know Ryan only had a bit of time, but we're almost at that hour and we're almost at the 2-hour mark. Ryan, any last thoughts?
Nah, thanks for having me on, guys. This is fun. I'm glad Cole Hauser finally got me pinned down to a day to come on and do this. So this is fun. Thanks for having me on, talking about stuff we like, which is always fun in a world of so much dog shit. So it was good. And thanks to everybody in the chat for showing up.
Yeah, this has been great, and we'll be doing episode 6 soon. But I just want to say thanks to everyone. Thanks to my co-hosts Ronan, Cornboy, Isaac, Magnum, and even Lex for being here. It's been great. Everyone's link is in the chat. Please sub to everyone and sub to Ryan, to everybody, and again, just wanted to thank everyone for being here. This has been great, and we'll catch you on the flip side. So we'll see you soon.
Sure.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Peace
care,
out,
everyone.
everyone. Take care.
Anniversary to G.I. Joe. 199, yo Joe. 40th anniversary, huh?
No, a real American hero. That's what he means.
Oh.
A-R. Yeah, a real American hero.
I thought that was just like coming from the perspective of a Chinese Muslim. Like, praise Allah. That's what I thought that was.
I'm sorry, she made it wrong, but then when you brought the Chinese Muslim into it.
There you go. Praise Allah. Come get my she chicken.
Oh, shit.